All right, well, we just saw X-Men Days of Future Past, and the way that this show works is that we will give a quick spoiler-free review, and then we will dive into more detail. So if you think it sounds like a movie that you want to see, once we get to that point, stop the video, go see the movie, and then come back and hear what we thought in more detail with more spoilers and stuff like that. Starting off, I enjoyed this movie. It was very good. If I would say that if you're a fan of the X-Men in general, particularly if you're a fan of the First Class semi-reboot or reinvigoration of that franchise, this is pretty much the sequel to it, and I would say it's as good or better. My biggest problem with the First Class movie was with the third act. I thought it was kind of weak when they're all sort of hanging out and fighting in the middle of the ocean somewhere. It just seemed kind of boring to me. But it was good. It just didn't really stick together as well all the way through. This one I thought was much more consistent. It had a lot more going with it, with the time travel thing. There's some little nods to the Terminator in there. It didn't do the nods to Back to the Future that I was hoping for. Wolverine didn't turn up at the end and say, "We got to do something about your kids." Apart from that, it was great. I really enjoyed it, and I would recommend it to anyone that might like a superhero movie.
Yeah, I absolutely loved it. I thought it was a lot of fun. It doesn't hold your hand. If you're not familiar with the X-Men, you're probably going to feel lost with a lot of the characters. But they're there for big action set pieces. If you don't get too hung up on it, it's super fun. I think anybody would really enjoy this movie.
Mm-hmm. I hated it. No, I loved it. I thought from beginning to end, I had my attention kept. I was laughing in the moments where they were meaning me to. I was feeling emotional whenever they were purposefully driving me that way. The action sets were amazing, absolutely incredible. The power usage was so above and beyond anything I've seen
much more,
in an X-Men movie up to this point, or honestly, I'll say almost any superhero film, maybe like Hold Avengers. The power usage was incredible. As a fan of X-Men from a very, very long time ago, I loved this movie.
Cool.
Yeah, I'm gonna echo all of that. I wish I could review this as a cinephile or somebody that loves movies or somebody that intentionally stayed home from everything and watched The Tree of Life last night just cause, but I can't because I love the X-Men so much and I loved this movie so much that I was just enthralled every second of it. I had so much fun with this movie. Again, I'll say I don't know if a non-fan could keep up with all these crazy fucking characters.
Not a fan. I enjoyed the movie as a non-fan, and that's our quick review. We'll get into a little bit more details, talk about spoilers, talk about some scenes, things like that. But generally speaking, this is the summer blockbuster that you want to go see. It was more fun than Godzilla. It was more fun than The Amazing Spider-Man 2.
Agreed.
Yes. I'll give you that right there.
So, yeah.
So, as a non-fan, and sort of what you talk about with not being able to follow some of the characters and that sort of thing, that's always been a problem for the X-Men.
Yeah, just so many characters in the franchise.
Yeah.
Tons.
Yeah.
Whether you're in the animated series or you're in the movie universe, it's hard to keep up with all of the characters that are there.
Even if you are a fan, because when the comic books, they've specifically rebooted multiple times by just killing off extraneous characters because they thought no one could follow them.
Right.
But the movie does a pretty good job, I think, of paring it down to these are the characters that's going to be important. It's going to be Wolverine, young Xavier, young Magneto, and Mystique.
And then your flavor mutant.
Yeah,
Exactly.
And really you had, and I think this movie actually did a better job even than First Class, but First Class did it set up all the characters, the major characters in this one, were set up in First Class. So if you've seen that movie, there's not new people to really get to know so much.
Yeah, I'd say it's really the only one required. I think that you should see before this one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't actually. I know I've watched the first 2 X-Men movies, but I kind of fell asleep during them, and I never bothered to see the third.
But they do a
or
good job
X-Men
of catching
Origins
you up.
Wolverine. Yeah.
And not having it feel like previously on Wacky Mutant Adventures.
Right.
Like, they do a good job of getting you the information you need pretty smoothly and
Yeah.
entertainingly.
Yeah, and just having seen X-Men First Class was pretty much enough for me to be on board with
Right.
what was going on in this movie, I feel
Yeah.
like.
And a lot of the mutants from X-Men First Class, are we in the non-spoilers part still, or are we at
No,
the
no.
The
spoilers part?
spoiler away.
You can say whatever you
All
want.
right, great. Because most of them are dead.
Yeah,
They-
weird choice. They kill off so many off camera.
Yeah, they're like Havoc, fucking dead.
No, Havoc was alive. He was in.
Oh no, he was. Yeah,
Yeah, they
Yeah, we
showed-
don't
yeah.
really know what happened.
But it was
to
like
him.
Basically,
Yeah.
everyone that went off with Magneto at the end of First Class is dead.
Dead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Azazel,
Dead.
The other
Angel.
angel. Yeah.
Dead.
and those were characters too that they kind of and those are the ones that I felt they did a poor job in really giving you a feel for in First Class. Like they were
Agreed.
just sort of there.
Can I add one thing that sets this above First
Sure.
Class as well? There's no January Jones in this movie.
Oh yeah,
Yes.
that's true. That's
There's
nice.
no January
Yes.
Jones.
I didn't know
There's
it
a
which is so
nod
great.
to her. There's a nod to her by one of the Sentinels.
The Sentinels turns
going
into
diamond
diamonds.
skin.
Yeah.
There's a nod to that.
Well, and
when
they make sure to let you know she's dead. Don't worry, January Jones's boring ass is not going to show up in these movies again.
Yeah, I didn't mind her so much in First Class, but I will say one of the things that what you guys were talking about with how a good superhero movie shows off the powers and makes you want to have the powers.
Yes.
Yeah.
They did a great job of doing that in this movie. I felt like the last movie finally took Mystique, who I've always thought was the most interesting of the X-Men.
Mm-hmm.
Like in the 90s movies, I always thought she had the coolest power.
Right.
Definitely.
And they just didn't give it to a solid actress. Like Rebecca
Right.
Romijn did a serviceable
They gave
job.
it to a beautiful woman.
Right.
They
Yeah,
gave it to
that's why she
somebody who
didn't
looked
talk.
the part but couldn't speak
Yeah.
the part. And with Jennifer Lawrence taking up the role,
She's
Yeah.
phenomenal.
Yes.
Even better
Oh
than her
my
performance
God.
in First Class.
Yes.
Yeah, she's one of
Very
my
good.
favorite parts of First
she's
Class.
she's
Yeah.
essentially the
Better
villain of this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, essentially, yeah.
I loved her performance so much in this movie because I thought she gave depth to the character when the character needed depth.
Mm-hmm.
She gave so much life to it. Like, you wanted her to be redeemed. You desperately wanted her to be redeemed.
Yeah.
And for a character that in First Class, you just she just screwed over the person who had been there for her.
Yeah, she was
the
kind of
most.
whiny.
It
Yeah.
seemed that way. Like, she really fucked Xavier over. And in this one, you're like, yeah, but I really want you to be redeemed. So it's a really
Well,
interesting
yeah.
story for her.
I think the great thing is this movie really manages, I feel like, to make you care about all of these characters. Bad guys and good. Even Bolivar Trask.
I was going to say,
his-
Peter Dinklage
yeah.
did an amazing
He
job in this
killed
movie.
it. His
Yeah.
speech about why this is necessary, like,
yeah.
I love what he
It's
brought
a
to
Cold
this. He's
War
such a-
propaganda, like slightly tweaked for mutants instead of
Yeah.
Russians.
Right.
Yeah, and we
essentially.
live in an age of, movies that are made today are made in this gray morality, this post-gray morality type of style where you can make a movie like this where there are no, these are always the good guys, these
Right.
are always the bad guys. Like, Magneto, whatever, whenever. Like,
Yeah.
you just never know which direction he's going to go. And in the first movie, like the way that Mystique was, you wanted Mystique to succeed in this
Right.
movie, even though some of the things she was doing you didn't want,
Yeah.
was similar to what was going on with Magneto in First Class,
Absolutely.
where they give you this backstory where it's like, I kind of understand like why he's like that, and I can't really blame him for being like
Yeah,
that.
Right.
That's why he's such a classic villain. And I mean, Michael Fassbender just once
Oh
again
my God, he's so good.
kills it.
Really, really pulls
So
it together.
good.
Yeah, it makes you really sympathize with them. At the end when you see they're gonna turn on these Sentinels, and he just turns them on the humans that we're gonna just use them on mutants.
Yeah.
You're like, well, I get it.
Yeah.
And it's one of the best action set pieces I have ever seen in a superhero movie. He pulls up a whole baseball stadium to surround the White House and the Sentinels, which are giant robots that have like big guns on their arms. And it's then paired with this future fight. It's amazing. It will blow you away in the theater.
Yeah,
and we saw it in 3D. I usually despise 3D movies.
Yeah.
Really worked for this film. I really, really liked it.
Yeah.
I was surprised, actually. When it first showed up, I was like, 3D? Damn it, my head's gonna hurt. But honestly, I didn't even notice the fact that...
It was, it was really well done, 3D.
And just because it is part of these movies, the special effects are top notch. I saw Amazing Spider-Man 2. There were some really, really weak CG moments in that movie. This movie, flawless, just beautiful and stunning, I think, all the way through. So we talk about it, particularly the time in the bottle.
That's the best scene. Oh my god, the coolest use of mutant powers. Jesus.
It really, really was.
And it's interesting that, so if you want to compare like great scenes using superpowers in 3D. So the Quicksilver scene in this movie was easily the best like special effects action
standalone scene of the film almost.
That's the scene that you know everybody's gonna watch over and over again.
Yeah.
And you compare that to the best scene from The Amazing Spider-Man 2, which is kind of the same idea, which is we slow down time and we show how he has to make all these split decisions and he's saving these people and saving that people.
Yeah.
Like that's the best scene, that's the best action effect in The Amazing Spider-Man 2. The difference is that The Amazing Spider-Man 2 just couldn't pull off 3 or 4 characters going on.
No.
This movie pulled off like 30 characters going on.
Oh my god, there's so many characters.
And the other big blockbuster that's out right now, Godzilla, which I really enjoyed, and I think a lot of people will really like that movie. The difference is that this movie was enjoyable. You have that adrenaline thing going when you walk out of it. You want to be a superhero when you walk out of it. Godzilla, I need to see it again, but my first viewing of it, I just came out relieved. Like, I wasn't excited, I wasn't thrilled, I was just like, they didn't fuck it up. Oh,
that was my
Matthew
feeling.
Broderick didn't show up halfway through.
It came so close here and there, like, to being really bad, and I know people, like, get irritated with different aspects of it, with, you know, it cutting away from the monster and stuff like that. None of that bothered me. But just from a comparative standpoint, you know, movies that have come out this year, this one so far, I would say, has been the most big and exciting and, you know, left me with a positive...
Yeah, I think Fox proved that they can do it. They can make as good a film as Disney can with this property. This was as satisfying as Avengers. And I know that's like the laziest comparison you can make in a movie review, but it's really true.
Yeah.
And I can see them, there's a scene at the end with Apocalypse that will, if you're a fan, it will blow you away. It's so good.
Oh boy.
And I think they're gonna pull off a good franchise.
Everyone just, I mean, whenever they start chanting and you're listening to it, to what you hear, and then you hear it is this, Ben Sor, Ben Sor, Ben Sor. And it's just like, you've got to be fucking kidding me. And the camera pans around, you see this blue child. I mean, if you're a fan, it's addictive to see that type of thing, because now all I want is Age of Apocalypse. Like, I want it to come out tomorrow, and I want to watch it 9 times in the theater. But like that, I was so excited for this movie. We were talking about powers earlier, and I got to jump back to that because I absolutely loved the powers that Quicksilver portrayed in the film. It worked so well. They did it so well. But the reason I loved it so much was because he was when he popped up and they showed the image of him, every fanboy was like, why the fuck does Quicksilver look so goddamn stupid? Like, people were so mad about how Quicksilver he looked. and he stole the damn movie while he was
he
in
was
it.
great.
Yeah.
Well, that's the
God.
tough thing with movies like this that have so much pre-internet hype. You get really used to seeing these still images. Like, I thought the Sentinels looked kind of silly when I first saw them in the production stills, but in action, totally works. That big jet engine, the vapor effect, totally works. The same thing with... Actually, they don't ever call him Quicksilver in the movie. I think
called him Peter.
Yeah, Peter Maximoff, I think.
Maximoff.
Yeah. And yeah, it really, really works because it's like a kid in the 70s that's trying to dress like he's from the future, and it really works.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think that part of, we talk about Fox being able to pull something off, with Disney being able to pull something off. I mean, really, I think what it's come down to is that Marvel has just, we're into like, over the last 5 years, there's been something like 30 hours of Marvel
Right.
movie made that they're to the point where, and X-Men's a great example of this, where we don't have to deal with origin stories, we don't have to deal with love interests, we can just tell whatever we want to tell. We can say whatever we want to say.
We were just discussing the Captain America movie earlier. It's a political thriller with Captain America in it. You don't need to explain him anymore.
It's like that samurai movie that just happened to have Wolverine in
exactly
it, called The Wolverine.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Well, and what you're talking about here, like, it made this movie feel so comic booky because you didn't have to have the stop where it's like, and here's all of their origin story, and it's suddenly an hour into the movie, and now we can get to the fun part. No, screw that. It's all the fun part.
And by the way,
it's true.
That someone has tried to make a romantic comedy that happens to have a superhero in it, and The Amazing Spider-Man 2 wasn't very good.
I thought they were trying to make a music video that happened to have Spider-Man in it.
I think that was The Amazing Spider-Man 3.
Yeah, that was true.
Just Spider-Man 3.
Just Spider-Man. To jump to Amazing Spider-Man 2 for 1 second, I thought they were trying to make a cartoon. That is how I felt through that entire film. I was like, they were making a cartoon here. This was making a movie.
Yeah.
And that's the big difference between the two, and it's at its heart.
Yep.
Blink. Before we are done talking about this movie, I must mention Blink, because holy shit, that character just jumped to the top of my list of favorite powers I've ever seen.
They got it so right. I love that character so much, and she's just Age of Apocalypse, Exiles, Blink, and just killing it.
It's amazing.
Great.
She basically portal guns people left and right.
The
and
portal
it's
effect
brilliant.
is stunning.
Yeah.
It looks beautiful.
Oh,
yeah.
It's similar to what they were doing with the Zazel in the first one. It's just they added the whole...
You can see through the whole... Yeah, because you actually
portal
walk through.
And I felt like, on one hand, like, again, those were characters that we don't need to care about because they're they're ancillary to the storyline. That would be like my one, like, if there was like an extra, like a 45-minute prequel explaining some of those characters or going into those more, maybe they'll come up in another installment or something like that.
There is, Dale. It's called All the Comic Books Ever Written.
Well, I understand that. But speaking from a movie perspective, those characters felt a little bit undercooked, and the other negative that I would throw out about the movie is that the future setting, or the future place where they're just kind of waiting around for Wolverine to take care of things in the past, they're like hanging out on the set of Mortal Kombat.
Yeah.
It looks like a different movie.
The Tibetan temple.
It's so weird. Like, there's the two, like, pagoda things, and then there's the Mystique version Sentinels.
Right.
And I was glad that they didn't try to... one of the things I was worried about before going into this movie was that they were going to make way too big a deal, way too big a fuss about having Patrick Stewart and Ian McKellen in the movie. And that wasn't the case. They used Patrick Stewart to really good effect. Ian McKellen was just sort of there. Like, they gave him a couple of lines.
Yeah, he had a
Yeah.
pretty good action scene at the end.
Yeah, he had an awesome moment there with the jet at the end when he basically throws the jet like a grenade at a bunch of Sentinels.
Yeah,
which is
it
just-
did feel a little bit like a send-off for him. 'Cause I know
Yes.
this is the last time
Oh,
he's playing
especially
the character.
Patrick Stewart. Like
Yeah.
at the very end, that's designed to make you feel like, oh, good, this Professor X is gonna be all right.
Apocalypse.
Yeah. Well, no, this is supposed to be the last day appearance, so that's the last
Right.
we'll ever see of him.
Yeah.
Right.
So anyway, that's our review. Hope you enjoyed it. Definitely go check out the movie if it sounds like something that you're interested in. And check out the rest of our reviews here on YouTube and over at dalemaxfield.com. Thanks for watching.